Brace. A battery from a Marine Artillery Regiment fired a salute. An honor guard carried the president's casket to a presidential plane.
First Lady Nancy Reagan, the president's wife of more than 50 years, accompanied her husband's body on its long journey. She waved goodbye to a large crowd of onlookers before boarding that plane in California. The crowd applauded. Mrs. Reagan was followed by the Reagan children.
Well, hours later, the president's body arrived at Andrews Air Force Base in suburban Washington, D.C. A military band played Hail to the Chief as the president's casket was carried off the plane. A 21-gun salute rang out as it was placed in the hearse that would carry it to the Capitol.
And crowds greeted the president's casket as it arrived by motorcade at Constitution Avenue in D.C. People applauded as Mrs. Reagan stepped out of her car to watch her husband's caskets being lifted from the hearse. Then a respectful silence as the casket began its solemn military procession.
Thousands of people lined the streets as a horse-drawn caisson carried President Reagan's casket down Constitution Avenue and then to the Capitol. A military band accompanied it on its journey. Spectators braved sweltering 90-degree temperatures to pay their respects to the president.
And as part of the procession, a soldier dressed in full uniform led a riderless black horse with the president's boots turned backwards in the stirrups. The ritual symbolizes that the warrior will never ride again.
And within the last hour, the horse-drawn carriage arrived at the Capitol. The president's casket was carried inside. The president will lie in state in the Capitol Rotunda. People have been lining up since before dawn to pay their respects to President Reagan, and as many as 200,000 people are expected to file by.
In between meetings at that G8 summit in Georgia, President Bush is working on the eulogy, which he will deliver at President Reagan's state funeral on Friday. The White House says it will be a speech of thanks on behalf of a grateful nation. President Bush and the First Lady will then go back to Washington, D.C. tomorrow night to visit with former First Lady Nancy Reagan. The last state funeral for a U.S. president was more than 30 years ago. This is Lyndon B. Johnson's funeral in January of 1973. President Johnson, you may recall, died of a heart attack at the age of 64.
President Bush has declared Friday a national day of mourning. All federal government offices will be closed that day. There will be no regular mail delivery. And the New York Stock Exchange will also close on Friday in a tribute to President Reagan.
And stay with KREM 2 for continuing coverage as the nation remembers President Ronald Reagan. The president's body will lie in state until Friday, when his remains will be taken to the National Cathedral. The president's state funeral is set to begin at 8:30 Friday morning. Live CBS coverage will begin at 7 a.m. By Friday evening, President Reagan's body will be back at the Reagan Library in California for a sunset burial.
Friday's National Day of Mourning will shut down federal offices, but Spokane County services will remain open. KREM 2's Christy Goranson joins us now live with more on today's decision by county commissioners. Christy?
Nadine, Spokane County Commissioners voted today to keep county services open on Friday, but to save money, only a skeleton crew will be at work. The president made Friday a federal holiday. About 1,600 Spokane County employees are under union contracts that say they get paid leave or overtime pay on federal holidays. Today, county commissioners said they have no choice but to honor the holiday and even extended it to about 350 non-union employees. They'll get the day off, or if they work, they'll get a floating holiday to be used later. Commissioners say they don't know how much in overtime it will cost them, but the sheriff says his office will ring up about $44,000 in overtime on Friday. Commissioner Kate McCaslin says she's a Reagan fan, and she thinks the former President Reagan would not approve of making Friday a holiday.
I think it shows no respect for his philosophy, and now that it has this trickle-down effect way down to Spokane County, is I'm sure he would find equally appalling and inappropriate.
All federal buildings will be closed, along with the Regional Health District and the City of Spokane Valley. The City of Spokane and Kootenai County services will not be affected. Reporting live, Christy Goranson, KREM 2 News.
Also making news tonight, Coeur d'Alene police have arrested two 13-year-old boys who say they are responsible for two arson fires.
Until Friday, when